Hi, this is Dr. John Grazel, and this is another synopsis of our development course. This one particularly focusing on the fact that most development problems are problems with systems, and they're complex systems and they're dynamic systems. And not understanding that very often it explains why things don't turn out the way they're supposed to and why we don't succeed in what we hope to achieve. Now, this is not a course on systems and it's not a course on chaos, which people often confused with system. But we do have to say, how do we deal with complex situations? And for the purpose of this course, we particularly focus on one way of doing it, which is we look at these things as wicked problems. And what do we mean by wicked problems? We don't mean that they're evil. What we mean is they don't like to cooperate the way you want them to. You solve them, but in solving them, what you do is you just get another problem. So let me just give you a quick example from development of what that did. This is a true case. There was a desire to help some West African fishermen raise their income. That meant helping them catch more fish. But one of the problems was that they could only take their boats as far out as they could still see the land, because that's how they navigated in their canoes. But if they were able to go further, they could catch more fish, but they couldn't see land. So the idea was, let's get them some geographical positioning devices that'll let them go up further out into the ocean, catch more fish, and make more money. Very simple solution to what seemed like a simple problem. They were given the GPSs, but these fishermen also were members of families, members of community, knew other people, part of the economy, part of a global economy. And what they discovered was, once they had these GPSs, they could not only fish further, they could actually take their boats as far as the Canary Islands and Spain. And they also found out that people began asking them, and there was more money to be made smuggling illegal immigrants into Europe from their country than fishing as they traditionally did. So that's what happened. Now, this was a wicked problem. They income problem. Somebody thought it was simple. They had a simple solution, but it came up with a new problem. Now, was it a bad problem or a good problem? For the NGO, it was a problem because it wasn't what they expected. Politically, it was a sensitive problem because it's illegal immigration. For those who were profiting from it, the fishermen, it was a great success, more successful than had planned. How do you deal with these types of complex problems? Well, you deal with them by what's called taming them. Now, there's a difference between making something simple and simplistic and taming it. Uh, when you make something simplistic, you're fooling yourself. That when you tame something, you're controlling it. So, say you're trying to deal with a tiger. If you simplify a tiger and make believe it's a pussy cat, you're going to be in trouble at some point. But you can tame a tiger. You can put it in a cage. You can give it rewards. You can teach it tricks. There are ways you can tame it so it behaves as you want most of the time. But the big difference is, well, even though you tamed it, you still know it's a tiger, and you prepare yourself if other aspects of its tigerishness appears. That's the difference between taming and simplifying. Now, just to give some other examples very quickly of complexity, that a family, think of a family, one child, two child, three plus children. Yeah, a one child family, do I go to the zoo or not? Well, does the kid want to go to the zoo? Do we have the money and the time? Pragmatic decision. Two children, should we go to the zoo or should we go, to the baseball game? More complex because you have more people, but not that complex. So you sort of take out some mechanism. Let's discuss. Let's see who went, and you negotiate it. Three, four, five children. You can't keep negotiating. They all want to do something else. You put in rules and principles to deal with the situation. Okay, majority vote. Okay, everybody takes a turn. This week it's Johnny's turn. That's three different ways you can tame it. And for very complex things, using rules and principles to guide you is one way of taming them. Now let's go further with that idea of guiding. Let's give another example of complex analogy of complexity. One mountain, two mountain range, and then an island of mountains, and then beaches as part of an archipelago of other islands and beaches. If you climb a single mountain or hill, you do it step by step. You get to the top and then you slide down. If you're on a mountain range, you get to the top and then you see other ranges, but if you're smart, you've tamed it by coming prepared with a map, with a compass, with the capacities to then resolve these other aspects of this complexity as they appear. But if you're living in an island and you have to communicate with people on other islands, you have to go down on the sea, and the sea comes in at different levels depending on the tide, and sometimes there are typhoons. It's a very dynamic, complex system. You, what you do there is you learn to adapt to it and steer through it. You get what instead of principles and rules, you have guidance. You guide by the stars. You're sure where you want to go. You learn to steer. Steer, by the way, the Latin word used to be the root for the word govern. You govern yourself through it. You adapt to it. You cannot change it. Now, we're going to learn that these are three approaches to use depending on the complexities of the development problem we deal with. But we have another quick tool that I use, and that's how do we get at the different parts of this complexity. So I have a very simple device that deals with three dimensions. The first dimension is just what are the components, the pieces, the parts that we're dealing with. The second two, how are they put together in relationships with each other as institutions and organizations. And the third is behind it all, what are the values and the ideologies and the paradigms that people use to see in their eyes what's happening, to pattern things, because we pattern things differently. Now, I also say it's not only these three things, it's also, are we talking about the short, medium, or long term? Because time is a dimension, and it's a dimension at the same time. Right now, I'm worried about, do I have money to get home, to pay for the subway, short term? Midterm, do I have money perhaps to pay my mortgage for this month? Long term, do I have money to put in my retirement account? Short, medium, and long term, but I'm dealing with them all today. And that's true with all these things, elements, institutions, and beliefs. And the third dimension I have people deal with is motivation. How do you actually motivate people? Because we want to not only explain behavior, we want to change behavior. And for short-term and for elementary things, it's really immediate reward and punishment. I hold a gun to your head, I offer you a carrot, it makes you change. For relationships, you have long-term incentives and constraints, things that encourage you and facilitate the relationship or constrain or are barriers to the relationship. And by establishing one or the other, you can encourage or discourage the development of institutional or organizational relationships. And on that higher level of values and ideologies, that's where you have to get to people's knowledge and belief. If you want to change those, you got to really begin to deal with their beliefs and their meanings and give them a new basis in knowledge and experience as well as thinking to deal with those. And, when you put those three dimensions together, you have what we can play with as we try to induce change, which is what development is about. And in the chart I use, I sort of show the middle one, institution and organizations, as the largest, because actually that's the most effective one that we generally can interact with in order to induce real change. We can have change through short-term interventions with materials like humanitarian, but it doesn't generally endure. And real long-term change does involve changing values and ideas, but that takes a long time, and it's very complex. But in the world of development, the greatest successes are on that middle level: institutions, organizations, relationships, incentives, and constraints. Now, societies do this type of balancing as well. And we're going to look at the society of Bali and the example of Bali in this part 2 of this to see how that has traditionally occurred and to get some lessons of how it can make a difference in development today and tomorrow.